Getting arrested is one of those things most people assume will never happen to them right up until the moment when it does. And the worst time to learn about what to do during an arrest is during the arrest, because your brain is going to be doing backflips, your heart is probably pumping at 1,000,000 miles an hour, your mouth is probably going to be so dry you're not going to get a word out. Today we're talking about the 7 things to remember if you were ever arrested by the police. Please remember, this is general information, it's not personal legal advice, and laws can vary state between states. If this ever happens to you, get proper legal advice as soon as you can. Hi, my name's Haider Shakara, an Australian lawyer and a director of a national law firm. I lead over 40 lawyers across all types of legal matters. And by the end of this video, you're going to have the 7 things that you need to remember when you get arrested by the police, or if you get arrested by the police. The first thing to remember is this: stay calm and don't physically resist. I know that's an easy thing to say when I'm in the comfort of my house, but it's important to remember you can challenge the arrest of the police later on, but in that moment, physical resistance can escalate things very fast, and it can create all sorts of extra issues that you want to avoid. You can be charged with extra things like resisting police, like assaulting police, hindering and obstructing the course of police. So the lesson here is, even if you think the arrest is unlawful, now is not the time to challenge it. The time to challenge it is when you go to court. Your job in that moment is to keep it from going from bad to worse. All right, second thing you need to remember, ask the police officer clearly, am I under arrest? What am I being arrested for? Those 2 questions are super important because they could help your case later down the line. I see it all the time. People get tangled up in police interactions and police questions because they don't know whether they're being detained, whether they're being questioned, or whether they're actually under arrest. And those are very different legal situations, and the rules can change depending on what's happening at that moment. So remember this, ask very clear questions. Am I under arrest? If they say yes, then ask, what am I being arrested for? You're not being rude, you just want to be clear as to exactly what's going on. And if police tell you the reason, I want you to remember it, and I want you to repeat it back to them just to be clear, double clear. So if they say you're being arrested for drink driving, then you need to repeat back to them, okay, so am I being arrested for drink driving? And I'm saying this because the reason for arrest really matters later on, and it can be relevant as to whether or not the arrest was lawful or not, whether or not a search was lawful or not, and what powers the police were using at that particular moment. Okay, third thing to remember, your right to silence. Now, this is probably the biggest one, and it's probably the one we see go wrong so often, because people think that if they talk their way out of a situation, it's going to help. It does not help. Please do not talk to the police. You can stay silent. The more that you talk, the more that you ramble on, the more that you are giving them information, they're going to use that information against you. So if you are arrested, the safest thing to do is just give your basic identification details, but when they're asking more questions, just say, I don't want to answer anything, I want to stay silent. Also, please don't say that I reserve my right under the 5th Amendment. We don't have the 5th Amendment, that's a US thing. We do have the right to stay silent, but don't mention the 5th Amendment, otherwise the police are just going to laugh at you. So just remember, you have the right to remain silent. The more you speak, the more you are probably endangering yourself when it comes to your legal case later on. Okay, the 4th thing that I want you to remember is about when police want to make searches. So the first thing is, you don't have to consent to a search, and you need to ask them very clearly if you have the ability to refuse a search. So police will quite often use language that makes you feel like you have to agree to what they're saying. So if they ask and say, can we search you? Can we search your vehicle? Can we search your house? If you then give them consent to do that, then the evidence that they're getting from there would be legal. But if you say, no, do I have to give you the ability to search? Then you'd be surprised how many times they say, no, you don't have to do that. So if a police officer says, do you mind if I have a look in your bag? You can say calmly, I don't consent to a search. And just remember, if they have the power to search anyway, then they're going to do it. Okay, the 5th thing to remember is access to your phone and protecting access to your phone. So you don't need to unlock your phone voluntarily if the police ask you to do so. Again, if they have a search warrant, if they've got the power to unlock your phone, then they'll do so. But if they're asking you to do it, you don't need to just give them access to your phone. And just think about all of the things that are on your phone: messages, photos, GPS tracking, phone calls. All of that is powerful information that the police can use to strengthen their case. Don't give it up so easily. If they've got a warrant or they've got a power under specific legislation, that's a different story. But if they ask you to get access to their phone, then you can just turn around and say, I don't consent. I don't want you to access my phone. Sixth point to remember, ask for legal help early. So in Australia, we generally don't have this concept of you've got one phone call only. That's something that's just in the US. Here, you're actually able to make multiple phone calls. So you would hope one of those calls would be to your lawyer, because the sooner you can get access to legal advice, the better. And quite often in a lot of situations, if you can't get access to a lawyer, you can get access to legal aid or a public lawyer that's going to be available maybe in court. And that brings me to my seventh and final point, and that is staying organized and keeping all of the documents when it comes to your court case. So when the police are arresting you, there's going to be a whole range of documents that they're going to be giving you. They're going to be giving you physical papers. So make sure you retain all of that, because it's going to have all of these different conditions. It might have your court date on there. It's going to have bail conditions on there. And all of those things are so important, because if you have a bad understanding as to what's happening in those paperwork, it could lead to further arrests and further charges, which you do not need. Stay organized, keep all of that paperwork, and give it to your lawyer as soon as possible. Well, there you go. Those are the 7 things that I want you to remember if you ever get arrested by the police. Let me know your thoughts. If you've got any questions, place them down in the comments. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a lot. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.